Oh, this is deconstructing Christianity. Okay. These are always fun.
Went to Sam's Club today. I don't generally go to Sam's Club, different story. I went to Sam's Club today. And this lady asked me to look at a price for some tissue or something like that. She couldn't see, I'm a little linky ting. So I looked up, I gave her the price of the toilet paper. And I guess that little interaction, she enjoyed it. And she asked me like, to come to her church. And in that moment, I didn't know what to say. But I felt something like I felt away. So I asked her like, okay, well, like, what's the name of the church? I'll look it up. She was like, yeah, we have services on Sundays, on Fridays, on Wednesdays, on Saturdays. I'm like, okay, I'll look it up. I think it pains me to know that there are so many people who don't understand how much harm is in the church house. I think it truly.
Hold on. How did we get here again? You got a price tag for her and then you think she enjoyed it. No, she didn't enjoy it. Just based on the interaction, she invited you to church. There's nothing to enjoy about that. Anyway, and then we jump from you doing something from someone to being invited to church, and then now we're talking about church hurt? Like, how is that related at all? Because she invited you to church? What does that have to do with church? Was she a mean lady? How are we already deconstructing Christianity based on this? I don't get it, but maybe I will as she keeps spewing nonsense.
Bothers me how many people are so unaware, like either willfully ignorant or just ignorant of the impact of how y'all have been perpetuating these Eurocentric interpretations of this theology. And y'all know me as Chaplain of Culture. Like, y'all know I went to Yale. I got my Master's of Divinity. Y'all know I'm online, Deconstruction, Harmful Theology. Y'all know that. But in Sam's Club, I was a civilian. Nobody knows none of that. And I'm not going to like wag my finger at this lady um, because she doesn't know and she's older. But I did realize something. I
She was
realized
young at some point.
that you can't just be inviting people to church, not without caveats.
What?
What? So wait a minute. Let me just get this straight before we even start to get into this whole deconstructing Christianity, because I find it very ironic that a person can go to Yale, which that doesn't mean anything to a person that's called, but neither here nor there. That a person can go to a school in order to understand Christianity or Jesus, let's just say Jesus, and they get their degree in divinity, and now they're sitting there telling you that it's a problem for somebody to invite you in a church. So it's okay to invite you to dinner. It's okay to invite you to get graduation. It's okay to invite you to the club. It's okay to invite you to another city. It's okay to invite you to breakfast, brunch. It's okay to invite you to a lot of places, but it's problematic to invite you to church without.
Yeah, without a caveat. Yeah, I don't understand because I'm pretty sure something emotionally bad has happened in any of those places that he just named off to you. Well, I'm pretty sure you're going to send your kids to school. Do you know how many people have been killed in schools or bullied in schools? What are we talking about here? This is the nonsense people do. And who cares if you went to Yale? If you get on the internet and you're saying freakishly stupid things, how are we supposed to understand what you're saying? You just jump from a nice interaction to church hurt. It sounds like you're the one that's hurt. And I don't understand why she thinks jumping on the internet to say that Christianity came from a really bad place when the history of Christianity far supersedes the history of African tribalism or spirituality, considering that Ethiopia has a Bible, an original Bible, considering that there are a lot of roots in Africa regarding Christianity. Like, I don't even understand how you're gonna deconstruct something that I guess you don't even understand. Way to tout your Yale diploma or certificate or whatever you call it. Why don't you have an actual conversation with a scholar? I can get a PhD too. I can get a master's. I can write my dissertation and get a PhD. A lot of people can get their PhD. They just choose not to because it's a waste of time. It takes a lot of effort. And at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that you're wise. It doesn't mean that you're smart. So I'm not even sure why she prefaced that to pre-frame you or to give you the idea to contextualize that what she's about to say is going to be smart, because it wasn't. It really wasn't. She didn't even say anything substantial.
Caveats. Y'all don't think that's weird? Honestly, I think that we're getting towards, and I'm not going to say the end of days. I think that that's probably too general. I think that we're dangerously close to crossing a threshold to where there's a point of no return. Yes, you don't have to say no. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. But people are so easily offended. And I'm almost starting to question whether the story is true or not.
Without, do you want to join me at my place of worship where we are pro LGBTQIA, where we are actively uncovering the impacts of like anti-blackness and how it presents itself in societies, where we look at love as a social justice ethic. That's what I'm gonna need. I need a church that come with a resume, and even still probably not.
Okay, so it makes sense. I'm gonna deconstruct Christianity so I can create my own religion. That's basically what it boils down to. I don't even know why they give people certificates or diplomas based on just doing PhD work, because the intelligence level it takes to say something like this is like down here. This is what you this is propaganda. So you basically went to school to speak propaganda points. You haven't thought for yourself in any capacity, because everything that Christianity stands for, you just said, yeah, I want the opposite thing. And that's my church. That's going to be my church. You realize that Christianity approaches these situations based on biblically cultural ideas or structures, such as God created man and woman. Abortion is not a good thing because God created you on purpose. Homosexuality, like all of these things come from Christian ethics system. So to say that I am opposite of that, that means you have an ethical system that points somewhere else. Either you're the God or it's like a mesh of a whole bunch of other religions, which you are your own God at the end of the day. If you don't specifically follow a religion and you just kind of pick and choose what you want, then you're kind of your own God. And it's so crazy that she said Eurocentric religion in regards to Christianity, that they brought it to Africa or whatever, or like it came from Europe. You're living in a Eurocentric country. You realize that the LGBTQ movement comes from the same people that you speak against, basically white people. You don't like the Eurocentric way of doing things, but here have LGBTQ and their rights. Here have the propagation of homosexuality, because I don't know, it just makes sense and it's nice to just give people the rights to do whatever. You realize that the roots that you claim that you're probably from, which is being black, African, you realize that those roots actually hate those kind of practices. They go so far as offing some of those people, which is wrong. But at the same time, we can't deny that they hate those practices. So you say I hate Eurocentric practices that morphed my people. I don't even know what she's saying into something else. And then you say I don't like these Eurocentric practices. I'm gonna go with these Eurocentric practices, which doesn't even make sense at all. Yale, take your degree back, man. This is crazy. Who let this woman out of school, man? She should be in the 12th grade still, because what is she talking about? She's made no arguments. Even if she didn't, anything that she said is so hypocritical. You hate religion, Christianity as a religion, so you're going to establish your own religion. Okay.
If we're going to talk about behaviors within the Black community and their roots, I think that we would be remiss not to talk about Christianity and its impact. I don't think people realize how deeply Christianity shaped Black behavior, especially psychologically and especially in the family structure, because historically the Black church wasn't just a church. It was a survival center, a community center, a political center. So naturally the values that were preached at church were preached at home. But the Christianity that many enslaved Black Americans were introduced to were primarily focused on obedience, suffering, endurance. Slave owners often prompted scriptures about obedience because a psychologically obedient population is easier to control. So through generations, certain behaviors became morally associated with being a good person. So not just spiritually good, but socially good. For example, a lot of Black kids were taught that questioning an adult was disrespectful even if the adult was wrong. Why is that? Because authority became deeply tied to morality. That's why in a lot of Black families,
But wait, that's not true. They teach that in Africa still. And so, how did the slavery times make it back to Africa? Maybe I missed something. I'm going to go back and see if I missed something in what she said, but it's not unique to the West. It's actually taught all over Africa.
introduced to were primarily focused on obedience, suffering, endurance. Slave owners often prompted scriptures about obedience because a psychologically obedient population is easier to control. So through generations, certain behaviors became morally associated with being a good person. So not just spiritually good, but socially good. For example, a lot of Black kids were taught that questioning an adult was disrespectful even if the adult was wrong. Why is that? Because authority became deeply tied to morality. That's why in a lot of Black families, obedience became more important than emotional expression. Silence became associated with respect. Endurance became associated with strength. Logically, this created generations of people who knew how to survive pain without necessarily processing it, which is why vulnerability can feel very uncomfortable in a lot of Black households. Because historically, vulnerability wasn't seen as safe, but religion was. Faith now became the coping mechanism. Now add racism to that. Black families were already under constant pressure from white America, so respectability became extremely important.
Naturally, they're always going to associate it with racism or suffering. And the reality is that persecution has nothing to do with either. Now, people using that as a tool or a mechanism to be able to control people does not mean that Christianity or worshiping Jesus itself is bad. And notice how when people are trying to have these deep thoughts or they're trying to deconstruct what Christianity is, or even criticize it and say that you shouldn't believe, they never speak about the word itself. They speak about how people manipulated the word in order to manipulate other people and get them to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, she is just straight up wrong. She is all kinds of wrong about this. Like I said, these kind of ideas are taught in Africa, and it's not just specifically tied to the West and chattel slavery and all of that stuff. And that's one of my problems with this African American Black people stuff. They're in such a tiny little bubble. Everything that they don't like is associated to racism. It's actually kind of crazy when you think about it, because can you teach a horse how to fly? No, you can't. So if a certain type of people don't already have standards and ideas that are ingrained in them to be that kind of way, there's no way you can teach them and then it passes down generationally. It's just not going to happen. The reason why it happened so well, the Black people here, is because it was already a thing. The structure of African tribalism and all of those things, they taught this already. This was already a part of the African people. So when they come here and they find out that the Bible can be used to easily manipulate this people and teach structure and order and all of these things, is because it was already a part of them. And then when they taught this on top of it, oh, you're going to get punished if you don't strictly follow this that's already ingrained in you. Boom, done. Their job is done. That's it. This has nothing to do with they manipulated all Black culture, because if you notice, not all Black people are the same. A lot of Black people in America today are immigrants having nothing to do with slavery, yet they still have the same kind of standards for their kids, where they're like, respect adults. When an adult is talking, don't talk, don't interrupt, don't pour out your emotions. Has nothing to do with the Black people here in America who went through slavery. It's a general thing. So people, like I say, people always find ways to deconstruct Christianity, where it's like, bro, please sit down and learn some logic, because you sound so stupid. Look, if you guys enjoy this and got some value out of it, I'd appreciate a like, comment, share. Peace.